afternoon. Um, Welcome to today's event. My name is Hannah Broish, and I am the Manheim Township Women in Leadership Club Advisor. And I am so excited for today's forum, and I know you're in for a treat. I would like to thank our wonderful panelists for taking the time to share your experience, story, and expertise with us. And I would especially like to thank the Women in Leadership Club for their hard work to make today's forum a reality. So at this time, I am going to turn things over to the club leadership to facilitate today's forum.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vivian Ely, and I'm the event coordinator along with Grace Bowman for the Women in Leadership Club. So we all worked to facilitate this event. So welcome to the third annual Women in Leadership Forum. It's really exciting. And thank you to everyone for being here. And a special thanks to our superintendent, Dr. Felty, for also taking the time to be here with us today. It's really exciting. We're really excited to have all these amazing panelists with us today and to hear from them about their experiences in their respective fields.
Hi, I'm Grace, and like Vivian said, we're super excited for this event today. And with everything that has happened this year, we're super excited that we could still have this. And I can't wait for you guys to hear all the amazing things our speakers have to say and just get to learn something new. So for a little background, this event is held in the name of Maribel Johns Nisley, and she was the first woman in the United States history to earn a warrant officer bandleader appointment. She set the stage for the expression of women's roles both within and outside the military, and she eventually came to the district to lead the Manheim Township and their band program. So she oversaw a period of growth and success for the performing arts at Manheim Township. And from that, we have grown into this huge club, and we are so glad that we have gained the support over these years, and we're super excited to hold the third annual Women in Leadership Forum.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Grace. Hey, everybody. My name is Sophie, and I'm president of Women in Leadership Club. I know a ton of you guys on this call, so that's absolutely incredible that you've been able to come out and make it. A bunch of people from not only Manheim Township, but districts around Lancaster County, as well as kind of the country, which is super, super exciting. So a little bit quickly about Women in Leadership Club at our school. Our club was established when I was a freshman. I'm now a junior. And it was with the goal to empower women and educate all of our school community about the struggles that women have to face, but also teaching women how to empower themselves and how to succeed in a world that sometimes isn't the most welcoming for women. And this year, each year the club has grown immensely. This year we have over 30 members actually in our club, which is extremely exciting that we've been able to grow to such an immense size. It's been hard, you know, with COVID, having to meet during club periods where half the people are virtual and half the people are in person, which is how our school runs. But nonetheless, we have this big sense of camaraderie and this big sense of the fact that everybody in the club wants to help each other and wants to support each other. Our club periods normally consists of a bunch of different things. You know, right now we really focused on planning this forum that you're at today, but a lot of our club periods consist of, you know, us watching a video and then discussing it afterwards, or us talking about a current event or a common topic between women. I know before we have had some really wonderful discussions about sexual assault and how a lot of women feel scared in just the world today, as well as just talking about, you know, why can't I be just as good in whatever job as a man just because I'm a woman? And we've had a lot of really great discussions, and our club is just a great opportunity for women to support each other and feel this really nice safe space in our school community. So every year our club awards a scholarship to one female graduating senior at Manheim Township High School who best exemplifies the 5 qualities we look for: excellence, leadership, initiative, teamwork, and enjoyment. I'll put the link to that scholarship for any seniors at Manheim Township at the end of this call. And we raise scholarship money through the sale of our merchandise. I know a lot of you guys heard about this event through our merchandise. We always try to design super cute shirts so that we're able to make a lot of money for the scholarship that's awarded to a senior female. I would obviously now like to welcome a variety of different groups and attendees in our audience today. Like Vivian said, a huge hello and thank you to Dr. Felty, our superintendent at Manheim Township. I'd also like to welcome our CV school, well, the CV School District's Women Liberation Alliance and Jaden Stokes. You guys are so excited. I'm so excited for you guys to be here today. Also students and staff from Harrisburg School District, members of the Support MT Schools Committee, Manheim Township student staff and community members, as well as anyone joining us from outside Pennsylvania, which is insane to say. Obviously, COVID-19 has brought some insane things to the world, and it's been unfortunate that we have to hold a call like this over Zoom for our forum, but it's also given us an amazing opportunity to have speakers from all around the country come on our call and be able to give us some wonderful insight, which is something we haven't been able to do before. And then finally, just a couple of Zoom guidelines. If you are not a panelist or you're not asking a question at the end for our Q&A, make sure that you are muted just because we want to make sure we are respectful to everyone speaking and all the speakers. This call is recorded, so if you are uncomfortable with being on camera, feel free to turn it off, but we also love to see all your wonderful faces. And if you have any questions throughout the entire forum, feel free to direct them to me or just into the chat. We are all here to help you guys and make sure we have a really great forum. So with that being said, thank you so much for coming, and I will pass it off to Noah and Maddie.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming today. Hopefully you guys are all just as excited as the Women in Leadership team and club are. And I think I'll pass it off to Maddie. She's going to start introducing the speakers.
Okay, cool. So now we're going to introduce our speakers, as Noah said. So essentially, just when I say your name, please give us, again, your name and a short description of what you do. So first up, we have Dr. Michelle Ottey.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I am Michelle Ottey. I'm currently the lab director and the director of operations for Fairfax Cryobank. It's a reproductive cryobank that works with donor sperm, reproductive tissue, and direct client banking. So we cover a variety of activities, and we serve a lot of different types of recipient couples that are looking to build their families.
Great, thank you. Okay, cool. So let's just keep going, I guess. So next we have Dr. Rachel Finley-Bowman.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for having me as well. As I said, my name is Rachel Finley-Bowman. I'm Associate Provost for Academic Support Services and Dean of Student Success at Millersville University. And basically my role is, again, as I look around the room and I see some seniors, my role is to help students in their transition to college in their first year, and then help them to think about their path to success in terms of their major, in terms of internships, in terms of how do they make the most out of their university experience. So for those of you who are still looking, you know what a great choice is for next year? Millersville University. Thank you so much. I look forward to talking with you today.
Thank you so much. Okay, so next we have Molly Seidel.
Find out. I'm glad to be with you guys, and I'm glad you had it in the afternoon because it's only 11:39 here. I'm in New Mexico, and I am actually retired, but I worked at Franklin Marshall, Gettysburg, and Dickinson colleges as the director of the consortium there. And while I was there, I formed the Annapolis group of college presidents and did that for 25 years. I brought it with me when I moved here, and I was able to work out of my office and retired in June of 2017. So I've been retired for a little while.
Thank you. I'm so sorry about the name. If I say your name
wrong,
no
problem. No problem.
I'm so sorry. Okay, great. So next we have Kavitha Mathew.
Hey everyone, my name's Kavitha Mathew. You got it right. And it's a hard one, so thank you for that. And thanks for inviting me. I'm an architect. I am located in New York City, and I currently work for the American Institute of Architects, New York chapter, as a special projects director. And I also am founder of Equity Collab, which is an organization that helps with workplace equity, specifically for architects and also for other organizations.
Great, thank you. So next we have Dr. Cherise Hamblin.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Cherise Hamblin. I am a OBGYN with Penn Medicine Lancaster General Health, and I'm also the founder of Patients Are Waiting, which is a nonprofit whose mission is to eliminate health disparities by increasing diversity in medicine. I'm really excited to be here, and as you can see, I'm in my office and in an exam room actually.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have Madison DeWispeleare. I hope I said that right. I'm so sorry. Great.
It was perfect. Thank you so much. So I feel incredibly honored to be alongside the panelists and be on this call with so many amazing people on here. I see my sister here. I see Jaden from Power and a bunch of Attollo scholars. And so a little bit about me, I'm actually creative director of Attollo, which is an educational nonprofit here in Lancaster. I see some scholars on here, and we actually serve juniors and seniors in high school as they work their way through the college application process. And we provide a variety of different programming like SAT prep. We provide a 12-week entrepreneurship class called Attollo Startup, which I lead. And I also help lead diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings across the county at different schools with teachers and administrators. I'm also a board member for Music for Everyone, which is a music education nonprofit in Lancaster as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Okay, so now it's time for the questions. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna, start and ask a question and then have the panelists answer them in that order. And so, yeah, I think Vivian's gonna start us off.
Okay, great. So the first question that we have for you all is, how would you define a leader? And what characteristics make someone stand out in a crowd? So we'll start with Dr. Michelle Ottey.
Sure. So when I think about a leader, it's a little different than what I used to think about when I was your age, when I was in high school so many moons ago. It's not always the loudest voice in the room. It's not always the person with the most power. For me, a leader is someone who uses the power that they have to really lift up others, to help other people. It's somebody who uses their voice to ensure that their mission is being accomplished. It's somebody who can use their strength to improve a situation for someone who is either underrepresented or someone who's unable to stand up for themselves. And it's not only about that power, it's about how they're using the power to help others. And I tend to notice people who have good ideas, somebody who's kind, somebody who's empathetic. It's not always about being the loudest voice in the room. I find myself drawn to people who want to say more, who want to get more involved, but maybe don't know quite how to do that. And I like to think with my experience and my position now, especially professionally, I like to be able to use that to help other people to have their voices heard.
Great, thank you. And now we'll go to Dr. Rachel Finley-Bowman.
I absolutely agree with Michelle. I mean, when I think about, my own sort of journey from, where I started in my career to, into a position of leadership, it's the same kind of recognition that I definitely respond to and see those within my team and see when they get a chance to sort of shine, so to speak, that I feel that I've done my best job or my best work, right, as a leader. I think the other thing to build off that, so I don't sort of repeat what Michelle said, but I think to build off that is thinking about your own kind of style that you want to embrace as a leader. I'm certainly very much in the mindset of servant leadership, that I'm here to sort of collaborate, lift up, like all those great things. But also, and I think that comes from, sort of a lifetime of, playing sports and things, thinking of it as, it's a team, like we're all in this together. And the leadership piece, that quotient is designed to help us collaborate and have everyone's voice heard. And that's very important. And I think the last thing that I would add to that is probably the one thing that I've learned is that the most important capacity you could have as a leader is to be a good listener, that you need to really understand what's happening around you and listen to the voices who are telling you their perspectives and how we can work together to solve a problem, to examine an issue, whatever the case may be.
Great. And next we have Molly Seidel.
I totally agree. I think a leader listens to others, to their suggestions, et cetera, and gives credit where credit is due, and also shows loyalty and respects the views of others, and doesn't, even if they don't share their views, excuse me. And I think a leader has to have both patience and perseverance as she deals with various people in various situations.
Great, thank you. Now on to Kavitha Mathew.
Those are all such great responses. I'm going to kind of build on some of those, because I do agree with all of them. I think the way I define a leader is someone who inspires action, not necessarily somebody who's, wearing a leader hat and everyone's pointing to them and saying, this is the person in charge of all of you guys or something like that. It's really somebody who makes people around them want to take action, and hopefully for positive change. I think the best leaders that I've met are people who are somewhat vulnerable and honest and authentic in their way of leadership. And I really do feel that there's a shift away from that kind of top-down order-giving leader to somebody, as others have mentioned, who's collaborative, who listens, and who's willing to change. I think that's really important to say, that a leader is someone who thinks that learning is really important and that you never stop learning from those around you. So those are characteristics that I find the most important.
Great. And now we have Dr. Cherise Hamblin.
Awesome. So it's interesting. I relate a lot of things to TV, and a lot of the TV that I'm watching right now is on the weekends with my kiddos. And I am thinking, the word that comes to mind is brave. Leadership, it's so important to hear the perspectives of others and to take from your team and let the wonderful perspectives bubble up. But when I think about true leadership, I think it involves a lot of bravery, that leaders need to be able to stand up and say what's required, what's needed, and what's right. And when we see that in action, it really does show that person's bravery to maybe say the unpopular thing, or to do the thing that we might all feel and know needs to be done, but no one's quite ready or willing to say it. And so bravery definitely stands out to me as a really important leadership quality.
Great. And last but not least, we have Madison.
So I loved the idea that Kavitha mentioned earlier of a leader never stopping the learning process. I definitely agree with that. And one of the things that we actually say at Attollo, which some of you probably remember, is during our initial principal meeting, we actually ask the students, are they a recognized or unrecognized leader? And I think whether you initially believe that you're a leader or not, you could be seen as a leader amongst your peers. And so you might be an unrecognized leader to yourself, but to others, you can certainly be that. And so that kind of brings me to my next point, in that to be a leader, you have to have followers, right? If you don't have followers, then I heard someone say, if you don't have followers, then you're simply just out for a walk, right? And so, but it's not just about the quantity of the followers, but the quality, right? And who we attract is such a testament to who we are as a leader. And my last point that I wanted to say is that I think leaders, the best leaders, possess their empathy. I think it's super important to be empathetic. And to Dr. Hamblin's point earlier, is having courage, being brave, and lastly, having vision. Being able to establish vision and allow your followers to see that vision and walk alongside you is incredibly important.
Great. Thank you guys so much for those responses. They were really insightful and we really enjoyed them all. And now I'm going to ask the next question, which is what is a roadblock that you have faced in your career, especially concerning gender, and how did you overcome this roadblock? So we will again start with Dr. Michelle Ottey.
So being in science, we often hear about the fact that women and girls are underrepresented, but also underappreciated in STEM and STEAM, right? So as early as the fourth grade, I knew that I loved science and I wanted to do something in the realm of science. At the time, I knew that the cow's brain looked really cool. I didn't know what I wanted to do with that. But as time went on, I was really getting interested in everything, but it was very clear, even from the fourth grade, that the boys were being preferred. They were being called on more often. They were looked at as, the strong science performing students. And in the seventh grade, my school was chosen to participate with the Academy of Natural Sciences, which is a great museum here in Philadelphia, to do a science enhancement program. And the teacher chose 3 male students, 2 of whom had lower grades than I did in my science class. And it was the first time that I ever stood up for myself. And I said, no, this is not fair. I want to do this. And it worked. The teacher chose me and I was able to participate. I did the program and it was amazing. And it just sort of opened up my mind to the many possibilities of what I could potentially do in science. I'm sort of lucky. I chose to go to single sex education. I went to an all-girls high school and an all-women's college. So I didn't really have to deal with that inequity anymore. In the science classes, it was all women. So we were all treated equally. But then going into graduate school, it was sort of a rude awakening. I went to Thomas Jefferson University here in Philadelphia, and it was very clear to me from day one that the male students were being favored for opportunities and they were being encouraged to take positions of leadership. And it was incredibly frustrating, as you can imagine, especially coming from an environment where that wasn't a concern to one that is real world, where it is a concern. And I just wouldn't stand for it. I got involved in the Graduate Student Association. I looked for opportunities both extracurricularly as well as in the lab. It was very particular about choosing a female investigator to work with as my graduate advisor. So just really learning to assert myself and to be counted, to be included. And even if I'm not the best at something, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to try to learn and participate. So I do want to say I'm also very lucky. I've been with my current company for 15 years, and I feel really lucky that a former CEO saw my potential, and he really gave me the space to grow and to build my skill set. And what I think made a huge difference for me was that he corrected a salary inequity and really helped me to grow in confidence. Having somebody else see that I was good enough, that I was smart enough and had the skill set, and then to take that extra step and correct that salary inequity made a huge difference for me, because that built my confidence up and it helped me to realize I do deserve the same salary as a colleague who was doing a similar job and was a male who was getting paid more. So that has not just helped me to build my own career and my own experience. I then have been able to extend that to the staff that I now oversee. I manage 6 labs throughout the country, and I work really hard to ensure gender diversity, ensure that we're hiring people of color, ensure pay equity across my staff. So taking all of those lessons that I had to learn from my own experience and being able to apply them now has been really important and empowering, not just for me, but the people that I work with.
Thank you so much for sharing. That was super inspiring. Now we have Dr. Rachel Finley-Bowman.
Thank you. And I don't know, when I thought about this question, I don't know if I could necessarily identify one roadblock, but I think I would interpret this question in a different way, that when I think about my career, it hasn't been necessarily one roadblock that was, sort of created me to pivot, but it's actually been sort of a series of microaggressions that have continued throughout my journey in academia. And for anybody who's contemplating a career in academia, I would highly recommend it. I think it's been fantastic for me. It's enabled me to have work-life balance and a family that I didn't necessarily envision I could, or even thought that necessarily that I wanted. But it also has come with drawbacks, expectations. In a similar situation, my PhD is in history, which is also very much a male-dominated field, often relegated to the expectations that if you are a female historian, you're going to be doing women's history, and that's really the space for you. And that when I pivoted early in my career, moving into administration, that was even more of a challenge. And you're in my department, in an all-male department, except for myself, and recognizing just those small nuances that you think maybe didn't necessarily mean anything, but just continue to undermine and erode your confidence or your position. Things, the expectations that if there's a meeting, you of course will be the minute taker. If you are pushing forward a bold and new idea, the room doesn't necessarily respond to you, but then when your male counterpart sitting next to you, he says, yes, I agree, and says the same thing, then suddenly it's the topic of conversation. So it's those things that continue onward, and that, if you can understand the impact of a microaggression and you can see what that looks like on sort of a daily basis, it's about how do we then shift the conversation, and how do you begin to pivot the conversation to demonstrate your worth and your contributions to what you're doing. The frustration that comes along with that is that oftentimes, we talk about pay inequity, but oftentimes there's work inequity too, where you have to sort of go the extra distance or the extra mile compared to, say, maybe a male counterpart or a male colleague who will be recognized at a certain level for maybe half the amount of work. So I want us to sort of continue to think about those kind of things, not necessarily in one defined moment or one defined feature, but to recognize as you're looking to become leaders in your fields, as you're thinking ahead to college, to grad school and beyond, what that can be and how you can continue to be ambassadors to change that kind of thinking and that kind of culture. Because it's certainly been better for us as our generations have changed, but I look to you all now as sort of the future, right, of the American generation, and how you can begin to really sort of change that dialogue.
Thank you so much. Now on to Molly Seidel. Molly, you're still muted. All good.
Okay, there we go. My biggest challenge was my biggest roadblock, because I didn't have the confidence when I was younger to go on. I had my boys and decided I wanted to go to college, but I was afraid to. It was a really scary proposition. Juggling care for the kids, including going to all their sports games and all the other things that go with being a mom and a woman, all the shopping, all the cleaning, all the cooking, etc., while working. But my parents gave me the impetus and to get the push that I needed to go to school. And as I started taking courses at Millersville, my confidence grew. I took one and I had like an A+, and then I took two and I had both A+, and I kept going. So my confidence grew. And when I taught for a few years, and then when the job opening at Franklin, Marshall, Gettysburg, and Dickinson came up, I grabbed it. And I worked for the presidents and the deans, 3 presidents, 3 deans. And basically, my job was to make it happen. I formed the Annapolis group because they wanted to have a meeting of the presidents who would, discuss their concerns. And we started with 9, and I wound up with 130, and a corresponding group of deans of 130. And the president said, and it's a 3-day meeting in June. So it's like having a big party for 3 days. And they said, we want to have the deans. And as I said, it was in June and this was in April. So I had to find a place where we could put all, 200 and I think we had 250 the first year. And you just do what you have to do, basically. And my confidence grew, and I was able to do my job for 25 years. I took it with me when we moved in 2000 and continued doing the Annapolis group meetings. We had a meeting in DC in November as well. And my job enabled me to meet a lot of really interesting people. Bill Gates Sr., Mary Robinson, who was the first woman Irish president. And it gave me the confidence, I think, as I moved along to be able to pick up a phone and just call them, which is what I did.
Thank you so much. Now we are on to Mathew.
Yeah, I agree that with Rachel that it wasn't like one with what everyone's saying, honestly, with all the roles that we take on as women, but it wasn't just one roadblock. And I had no lack of confidence. I was kind of like, every time somebody said no, I was like, okay, challenge accepted and move on from there. But so going into architecture school was kind of, not necessarily a traditional thing either for a woman at my, the school I went, I was the only one that I knew of that was interested in that would, from a young age, take the boys, like, building toys and Tonka trucks and stuff to play with instead of whatever I was given. But, I decided that I'm going to do this. I remember my grandfather, he's like, what are you going to do as an architect, as a woman? Like, that's not going to work. I'm like, sure it is. It's going to be fine. But then I got to school, I got into architecture school and I looked around me and it was half women. It was actually more than half women in my class. And I was like, oh, okay, good. That's over. Like, no more challenges. I'm done with those. Like, little did I know. So what happened was there was a study that was done about women in architecture specifically, and how few there are, not that necessarily that are in school, because I went to school a long time ago. And as I said, it was half then, and it's been half at least ever since. It's just that there's various what have been referred to as pinch points along the way. And those pinch points can be about, the pay inequity that we get from the very beginning, but that grows, it widens in the higher positions. It's a huge, and I realized that in my very first job, just like working one weekend and getting some kind of overtime comp time and asking, talking to one of my colleagues who was the same level and finding out, he's like, oh, I'm not eligible for comp time. And I realized, like, in order for that to have been true, he must have made at least $10,000 more than I did. And that's a lot in a starting architect salary, right? So that was shocking to me. I was like, wait a minute, because we didn't talk about it. We never talk about how much the person next to you gets paid, and that's a problem. So a lot of those, and I remember fighting for, like, higher pay and not getting it, and having to, make deals with who hired me, saying, like, okay, I want an evaluation in 6 months instead of a year. I want an evaluation in another 3 months. And I promise you, I will have gotten to those, and it was a constant advocating that we had to take on. And I have to say, after a while, it becomes exhausting, because you think you've reached a point where you can kind of sit back and relax, and it's not true. As you get older, those things continue, and other pinch points, having a family, having to deal with other responsibilities, being pushed and sidelined in your career away from things that are more like the plum assignments to the ones that are more back of house. You don't realize those things are even happening sometimes until you can get a long view and look back. And I look back along my career and I see these things that are evident in many people's careers have happened to me. So I would say to you guys as advice, roadblocks may happen, but be even more aware of those little speed bumps, because they add up. They add up quite a lot, and they can add up in terms of ending up making far less than your peers. Going away from work, I know with the pandemic, it was already bad, but with the pandemic, 4 times as many women left their jobs as men. So that's crazy when you think about it. And I think there's a lot that needs to be done, but we'll get more into that. I'll let somebody else say something.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for that insight. Next, we'll go on to Dr. Cherise Hamblin.
That's all wonderful things. When I think about roadblocks specifically in my life, so I can't stand being mansplained. can't stand it. That's a roadblock. Because I'm confident, I am, capable. I grew up, I have 2 brothers, one on either side of me, so I know how to fight. And I know how to argue and I know how to shout and all of this, but I don't like to shout. I kind of do, but there's a place for everything, right? So I find that over time, when you know that you know something and you offer it, it's very frustrating to have it discounted or questioned or I'm blanking on the word. And then to later hear it back from someone else's lips. And I used to let it go. And so while this was a roadblock, it was just that disbelief that something so valuable can come out of these 2 lips. Guess what? It just did. And it will continue. I will continue to add value to every space that I'm in. And so later on, I have learned, as the other panelists have explained, that to just kind of not let it roll off, because too often those small things, they do add up. And so you can't live your life fighting every day. And that's something that I think that's another roadblock. It's kind of like you have to decide when something is worth you going to bat for it or fighting for it, or that making sure that you get that recognition, versus if you're going to fight all the time. And I don't want to fight all the time. At the end of the day, I just want to be an OBGYN. I want to be a friend. I want to be a sister. I want to be a mother. I want to be a wife. And I don't want to fight all the time. So those would be the roadblocks that I've seen. Learning to take the things and address them, but then also balancing that, not wanting to fight all the time.
Thank you, that was great. And finally, we'll go on to Madison.
Yeah, so early on in my career, well, I still feel like I'm very early on in my career, but earlier, I founded a creative agency here, and I made the decision to bet on myself and go for it. And it was hard because as I looked around at other entrepreneurs in the area, they certainly didn't look like me. I didn't know of any female entrepreneurs and any females of color specifically that were entrepreneurs, and I identify as Latinx, and I didn't see anyone who, had a similar path or journey as I did. And so it was really hard to make that decision, and I worried often that I wouldn't be successful because I didn't have anyone to look to model. And so, but I made the decision anyway, because even if I don't have anyone that I can look to as a model, I can be the model for somebody else. And then that led me to, while that was kind of a roadblock initially, I then, with the various jobs that I've had throughout my life, I noticed that there weren't many women in leadership. And that was something that was very glaring to me, with not only the jobs that I've had, but the committees that I've been a part of, the boards that I've sat on. When it came down to the business conversations, women weren't the ones speaking. And that started to become very apparent to me. And I realized that, it's hard to be what you can't see. Right. And often you start to develop this sort of imposter syndrome, thinking, should I even be in this room? Should I even be having these conversations? Because so quickly you realize that you aren't, the image is homogenous, right, of what a leader is. And so, while women, we have this feeling of needing to work a little, extra harder, or this feeling of needing to be extraordinary to excel, that's something that have been definitely roadblocks throughout my life, but things that have not allowed me to not be extraordinary, or not bet on myself, or not walk into those rooms, even if I'm slightly uncomfortable, or even if I have that feeling of I don't belong. I do belong, right? And you belong, and you belong if you feel as though you can bet on yourself and have that confidence. And so I would say throughout my life, I've often felt that sense of not feeling as though I can be in certain rooms or be a part of certain conversations or be in a particular role because I haven't seen others. But ultimately, you can be the first in any space, in any industry, in any role. you absolutely can be the first. And so I've not allowed that to hinder my growth or success. So yeah.
Thank you all so much. It was nice to hear from all of you and meet you virtually. So I'll hand it off to Mia now.
Hi, thank you all so much. It is so incredible to hear how all of you have overcome different obstacles that women face on a daily basis. We all have people in our lives that have made us who we are today, and what you all had to say was very inspiring, so thank you. The next question is, could you please describe one influential woman in your life and how she has inspired you? So we'll start with Dr. Michelle Ottey.
One is so hard. There are so many incredible female scientists that have inspired me over the years, from Ada Lovelace to Jane Goodall, Rosalind Franklin, Barbara McClintock, Rachel Carson, my graduate advisor. You know, all of these women have inspired me because they had to do their work, as many of the other speakers have said, twice as hard, achieve twice as much to get the recognition that their contemporaries were getting. And they had to live up to better, you know, higher standards, and they were still underappreciated and still underestimated. But, you know, I don't obviously know all of them. The person in my personal life is actually my wife. She's hugely influential in my life. She is the best person I know. She's dedicated her entire career to making the world a better place for other people. She has helped hundreds of kids, first generation kids, get into and through college. She, you know, has this dedication to see a situation, acknowledge the inequity, and then work to change it. And it's really inspiring. And then even in her personal work with her church community, it's all about kindness and empathy and a genuine interest in helping other people. And that inspires me to be my best self. It inspires me to look at how my actions can have a positive effect on the lives of the people around me. So in terms of having influential people in your lives, I think, you know, I try to draw influence and inspiration from all of the people in my life, from my nieces and my nephews to my sisters-in-law and my mother-in-law and my parents and my family and my coworkers. But, you know, finding those glimpses of goodness in other people, for me, is really what's inspiring and helps me to hold myself up to a better standard. So I would just encourage everybody to really try to see the good in everybody around you, but really look for those moments, those significant moments that you can share with somebody that can really show you how the world can be better than what it is today.
Thank you. Next we have Dr. Rachel Finley-Bowman.
Yeah, it was also very difficult for me to just pick one person. So I'm going to cheat and not pick one person. But I would also say, you know, in thinking about this, you know, it's the idea too that we're building that support, that you create a network around you, right? A network of those who are sometimes going to be your champions, sometimes going to be your critics, because you need to hear that. But ultimately that, you know, they have your back, right? That they will support you in the vision and the journey that you want to take. And so when I think about those kind of people, sort of two come to mind, one very personal and one professional. And so from a personal lens, it was my mother. You know, my mother, and I'll probably get emotional here, so I apologize, but my mother was very much a champion for education. And I think that has been something that has resonated with me, and particularly as a woman, saying this is something that will never be taken away from you, that as you strive to better yourself and to make a difference, education will set you on your path. So if there's any takeaway from me, and it's probably not a surprise from the academic in the room, right? Get an education, right? Whether that's a 4-year college, a 2-year college, a skill set, whatever it is, but continue to grow in who you are as you find that pathway, because there is so much promise out there for you. So look at that, right? As part of the network, the second sort of vision I would probably say, or person I would point to in terms of shaping me, has been really my tremendous sort of first professional mentor. When I got my first sort of academic teaching job at Delaware Valley University, go Aggies, right? My mentor there was now retired, Dr. Dolores Joffrey. She was my first dean, and she really believed in me in terms of my academic leadership and really was a key mentor. And so I would again say to the group, you know, find that mentor for you moving forward. and find someone who, again, can be that network and can help support you and recognizes the promise and the value, the voice that you contribute to the conversation.
Thank you for those insightful words. Next, we have Molly Seidel. Molly, you're muted.
Still.
Come on, go. There we go. Sorry. But I think you said it beautifully. She always pushed education. I went to nursing school right after high school, and after about 15 months realized it was not what I wanted. It wasn't for me. And I didn't have the confidence to go back to school. And my mom really pushed it. And in a way, you know, moms push, and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, but it gave me the confidence to go. And I was very grateful for that. And she was always very supportive. But I have a second person, and she's the first one I thought of when I read the question, and that's my daughter-in-law, Nicolette. And despite living with MS, she is the person I want to be. She has more energy, and she does more in one day than most people do in a week. She is always very thoughtful. It's her I want to be when I grow up. So those are my two.
Thank you. Next, we have Kavitha Mathew.
So I also grew up with a lot of strong women in my life, my mom, my sister, my grandmother, but I'm gonna just gloss over all the professional women that I've been around. They've been great, and I've had mentors along the way, but I feel like probably everybody that I can think of in the architecture world, the women that I know, have had to navigate in sort of a man's world. I'm still waiting for the woman who can be a woman, you know, fully in the profession. So I know that's coming, and I know they're out there, but, you know, for now, I'm going to revert to the first person that I thought of, who's my daughter, Mira, who's amazing. And I just want to say her as a representative of this whole generation of women who are so vocal and active and know so much more than I ever did, and have so many ideas for the future, you know, of the world they're going to inherit. And I'm really proud of the way that, you know, the students and the teens of today have kind of navigated through things, through a lot of really hard things that have been happening in the world, you know, not just the pandemic, but, you know, the environmental issues, the economic strife, and obviously all of the racial tensions that have come and the inequities that have been surfaced. I feel like they're out there fighting and you know, speaking up about all of it. And so that inspires me. And that was the first person that I thought of.
Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Cherise Hamblin.
So I am going to go along with the trend and not choose one, but many times I'll be in different conversations, and the different hats that I wear, I'll have someone sit across from me and say like, "You're so impressive." And I'm like, I'm tired. But I do say, you know, I have the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce and Michelle Obama. And those are the people that I look at and I say, wow, you know what? I can get the pat on the back for doing something that I think is important, that I can't sleep if I don't do it because I know it needs to be done and it's within my sphere of influence. But there's always more that I can do. And so that's where I'm looking. You know, there's lots of other people I could mention, but I think that we're all pretty impressed by those two people. And after reading Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, I now in my mind and heart call her Mish, as if we're friends. And I run my dishwasher every night because she told me that she does that.
Thank you. Becoming is an incredible book, so thank you for your insight. And last but not least, we have Madison DeWispeleare.
So Dr. Hamblin, I too run my dishwasher every night after that. And so I just wanted to give you a shout out. But yeah, so two people come to mind, one kind of deeper, another one somewhat trivial, but it really impacted my life. And I'll start with that one is, you know, I had someone that I actually used to work with, and one day she mentioned how much she loved when I wore my hair curly. And this might sound simple to a lot of people, but throughout my entire life, you know, I didn't really care much for my natural curls. I wanted my hair to be straight all the time. I thought that's how you needed to look to be pretty. I thought that that's how people preferred it, because I always had comments like, oh, you look so much better with your hair straight. And I never really realized that that really contributed to my sense of self-worth, my sense of self-love. And that moment really impacted my life. And she walked through how to take care of my curls, how to rock them, how to just love them. And it completely altered how I felt about my natural self and how to be truly beautiful and how you see yourself. And so while throughout my whole life, I tried to abide by the typical societal standards that I was in proximity with, that moment shifted the way I saw myself. And so I'll never forget that. Although it seems minor, it was hugely impactful. But, and of course I got to shout out moms. You know, my mom, as a lot of you out here also feel similar, she is the most resilient person I've ever met in my life. You know, growing up, she was in and out of foster homes. She had 3 of us at the time, where we lived at the rescue mission for a little bit. We didn't have any support because her side of the family was, you know, incredibly abusive. And so we were kind of all we had. And so she was both in school, working full time, and taking care of us 3 girls. And I never forgot that. And so I just saw how she was able to not only take care of us, but also take care of her and her success, right? She knew that getting an education was important, not just for us to provide us with a home and all that, but for her to feel that sense of purpose and feel that sense of accomplishment and, you know, build a life for herself. And so, yeah, she's been through a ton, and got to shout out mom. So.
Thank you, Madison, and all of our speakers for your insight. I'm now going to pass it off to Grace and Vivian.
Okay, great. So now we're gonna open the questions up to the floor to everybody else, people outside the club who just joined the call to listen. So if you could use the raised hand feature, if you're on your iPad, it should be on the top right. If you're on a computer, I think it's at the bottom, and just raise your hand so I can see you at the bottom of my screen, and I'll call on you to ask a question. And if you could direct your question to one or just a couple speakers, so because we have to end by 2:30, so we're going to take a couple questions. So yeah, if you're interested in asking a question, please use the raise hand feature. If not, we have other questions from our club, but we just want to open it up to the floor. So
yeah, and like we said, we want to try to get as many people as we can who might have questions. So let's try to keep maybe the answers a little bit on the shorter side, just in case people do need to leave at 2:30. And if you don't feel comfortable speaking, you can put them in the chat.
okay, I'm not seeing any questions right now. Maybe we can go to a club member to ask a question. Sorry, there's background noise. Let's just give it a second and see if anybody.
I do have a question, actually. I don't have anyone that this is specifically directed to. Does it look like I'm looking there when I look? Yeah, it is. Okay. But I'm a junior, so the college conversations have begun, and I have no idea what I want to do. But I was just wondering, one or two of you wanted to, how you guys kind of figured out what you wanted to do, particularly because right now there's like, I think Jaden talked about this. Like, oh, you want to go into STEM, you want to, like, we're very focused on having women in STEM, but then it's kind of difficult because you look out into the career field and it feels like there are things that you are supposed to do, and things that you're supposed to be interested in. So I guess kind of just how you sort of realized what you wanted to do and how you pursued that to a fulfilling place.
Yeah, any one of you guys can choose to answer this then. It's a great question. Thank you.
Desiree, I'll just say right out, I still am not sure what I want to do when I grow up. I'm taking every opportunity that comes up. I knew that I had an interest in science and I wanted to do something in that realm, but I wasn't sure what that was. I think, you know, it's okay to explore. It's okay to realize that you don't have to make a choice today that's going to determine your entire life. Just follow your passion and follow what you love. Think about what you're good at, where you're excelling, and you know, look at the opportunities. You know, obviously you have to make some decisions and they need to be informed and smart decisions. And hopefully you have counselors and you know, teachers that can help you with that. But you don't necessarily have to know exactly what you want to do with your life. I still am just sort of still figuring that out.
So really quick, I would just love to say a quote comes to mind when I hear your question, and it's, we cannot become what we need to be by remaining what we are. And without exploration, without just seizing opportunities, to Michelle's point, and just saying yes more often, we can't actually know what's out there for us or what we can be. And so just explore, say yes more often.
I'll also just jump in real fast and say, I wouldn't recommend doing something because other people are telling you that's what you're supposed to do, because you're going to be miserable. So definitely pick something that that makes you happy. Like, I don't know, I know it's hard. It's really hard at your age to try to, there's all that pressure on you, like, oh my God, I'm going to make this decision that's going to inform the rest of my life. But I wouldn't think of it that way. I would agree with the others and say, this is an exploration. I had really great teachers who recognized things in me that I didn't, that they put the puzzle pieces together, I guess, of like what I was interested in, and said, oh, this profession might interest you. And it was something I'd never really thought of before. So I would look to your educators too, and to your, you know, peers, and what you pick first to do for homework, you know, and what you're, you know, the things you enjoy as opposed to those you don't. Because I think for things to be sustainable, it has to be something that you love.
And as you explore those kind of ideas as well, I mean, don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid that because I tried one stream of consciousness, it didn't work. And because again, you're learning from those experiences. And I certainly didn't end up where I started. I was, you know, intending a completely different career. And again, it just was sort of through a series of circumstances and through a series of, you know, sort of saying yes to opportunity. But don't let, you know, the fear of not quite understanding or not quite knowing deter you, because you will evolve over time. And, you know, the average American now changes their career, was it 5 or 6, 7 times now, right? At this stage of the game. So the key is, you know, getting the education, getting your skill sets so that you're open to the opportunities when they come. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Okay, we're gonna take one more quick question. We're gonna take it from Christina. And please say who you want to direct the question to, because we only have a couple more minutes.
I don't have like a specific person. I think it's just whoever it applies to. But I was just gonna ask, how have you dealt with, because I know like a lot of you talked about people in your lives, specifically like men that haven't exactly helped you get where you want to be, but how do you deal with women or closer people to you that don't uplift you the way that you necessarily want them to, and also how you have maybe helped uplift women near you that need it and don't necessarily help themselves, I guess. I don't know.
That's a great question. Thank you. We often forget that perspective, so that's good to bring it up.
So I'll take this, Christina. I will say this. In life, you're always going to have people who are detractors, and you're always going to have people who are supporters, but you have the choice to decide how much you listen to any inputs. And so it's really important to listen to inputs that are propelling you forward, to inputs that are giving you what you need to push through. And so I think that it's some of that. And then similar to any time you're on a plane, they say, you know, you got to put on or in a boat, to say your life preserver. On a plane, they say, you know, bring your oxygen mask. I think it's wonderful to have the view of, you know, helping others and how do you uplift others. But the reality is that you have to learn things in order to be able to teach someone else. You have to have mastery in whatever you're doing in order to really be a contributor. There are people, so I think that sometimes we can be trying to do so much before we've actually got it together. And so I think it's just important to listen to and amplify the inputs that are giving you what you need, quieting the doubters or the naysayers, and then as you have your bearings, give that push and that assistance to others.
I completely agree. That's such an important point. And I think that what goes right along with that is just having an awareness of our mental health and recognizing the, you know, the positive energy around us, recognizing the fact that life takes work. And in order to be our best selves, in order to put that oxygen mask on ourselves first, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself physically, you have to take care of yourself mentally. You have to recognize the things that are challenging you in a good way versus things that are maybe challenging you in a toxic way. And so using this time through high school, through college, to really figure yourself out and figure out what it means to you to be mentally and physically healthy is so important. And especially when you're still in high school, you don't really have a choice of who you live with, where you are. You know, you have a choice of who your friends are and who you can associate with. But just to recognize, just like Dr. Hamblin said, recognize how they contribute to you, how they bring you forward, how they pay things forward, or how they detract from your success, or even just from your happiness.
Thank you so much for your responses. If any of the speakers have any last closing statements they want to say, you can unmute and say them now. Okay. If not, then, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you for having me. And I want to say I'm so impressed with you all and your generation. I feel like for me, in my experience, I'm trying to forge a path within a system. And I'm so inspired by the fact that you all are trying to break the system and rebuild it. And it's really making me want to participate in that part of it a little bit more. So thank you all for inspiring me.
And I would just add on to that, again, thank you for having us for this delightful conversation this afternoon. And just for all of you not to forget, I mean, if you want to be inspired, look in the mirror. You're all so amazing. And don't forget that. And don't forget that.
Thank you all so much. We appreciate your time and dedication to this forum, and we appreciate it so much. I'm going to pass it off to Sophie.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming to this amazing event. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful speakers that came today. You guys are absolutely incredible. I'm so excited to get to know a lot more from people I've already known, but also a lot from people that I've never met before. And I'm so excited that you guys were able to come today and offer this incredible insight. This is a little bit of a plug, but if everybody who attended today, if you guys would like to follow us on Instagram, that is our Instagram handle. We post a lot of cute, inspirational stuff. You guys will see stuff about the forum today. I'll also figure out a way to post the entire forum on YouTube, so you guys will be able to look back on it and all of the wonderful stuff that was discussed today. If you are a Manheim Township High School senior and you are interested in applying for our scholarship, that is the link to sign up. You have to sign up through your Manheim Township School account. So if you get an error, that's because you're just not logged in through that. Obviously, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. And yeah, thank you so much. I'll pass it off to Grace.
Thank you guys so much for coming, both the panelists and the audience. I hope you guys got something out of this and that was really meaningful and insightful for you. And, you know, despite everything that's going on right now, I'm so super glad that we were still able to have this discussion with everyone. And I really enjoyed it and I had a great time. So I just want to say thank you for everyone thank you to everyone for coming, and have a wonderful day.